is about child to parent abuse. It is an awareness session. It's a bit of a whistle stop really of what is CPA, child to parent abuse, and also what we do as an organisation. So my name is Michelle John and I am one of the directors of PEGS. We are a local organisation based in Shropshire, but we've grown at an incredible rate, which we'll talk about further on in the session. We now cover the whole of the UK, which is incredibly sad. I see everything that we do as being sad that we're needed, but I also understand and accept that it's really positive for those families that need our help and support that we're here. Just a little bit of housekeeping really, because of the content of today's session. I'm happy for discussion. I think it's really important, but it's also important to respect other people's views. It's okay to have a difference of opinion, but we need to be respectful. You can contribute to any discussion. There's no shame, there's no wrong question. In fact, if you're thinking of that question, the chances are somebody else is thinking of it too. It might be helpful if you all keep yourselves on mute unless you're speaking, and that's just really to aid everybody else's learning and so we can listen effectively. Teams can be a pain sometimes with other noise picking up from other people's homes and wherever you are. If anyone does share any personal information today, just remember that confidentiality and not to discuss outside of the session. I'm not suggesting or asking for any disclosures, but obviously if anyone wants to share anything, we just need to remain respectful of the fact that it is somebody's life and experience and therefore it needs to be confidential. So who are we? Our story is quite different, I suppose, really to most services. We started in November 2019, but didn't actually go operational until just as COVID hit in probably March 2020. To date, we've now grown nationally. By Christmas of last year, we supported over 300 families. I now have probably 5 staff members. We're still a small team, but we're dedicated and highly experienced in working with families where a child or young person is displaying aggressive, violent, harmful or out of control behaviours. But what is CPA, child to parent abuse? We'll explore this a little further on in the slides. And current challenges. And when I talk about those challenges, I talk about them from us as parents, carers, guardians, and also for those practitioners and frontline workers. What I can share with you is we know that 1 in 10 families will experience child to parent abuse, which equates to around 3% of the UK population. We're in our infancy with research, as research only began in 2010. What we do know is there's an increase in reports of CPA, although I argue, is it an increase in reports or is it we're becoming more aware of the fact that CPA does exist and is occurring? We've seen an escalation since lockdown. Professor Rachel Condry undertook some research during the first lockdown and that showed a 70% increase. But our vision at PEGS, quite simply, is a world where child to parent abuse is recognised, understood, and victims are effectively supported. The content of today's session may well be distressing, so there is a trigger warning today. If you need to take time out, please do so, because we will be hearing from parent victims in the session. So is child to parent abuse domestic abuse? There is currently no legal definition, although depending on the age of the child in question, it will fall under the government's definition of domestic abuse, and that age is 16 years old. What I can share with you is child to parent abuse is within the domestic abuse bill guidance document. The government currently call it adolescent to parent violence and abuse. So far this morning, you've heard me call it CPA or child to parent abuse. And the reason for that quite simply is once you're a parent, and your child is always your child, no matter how old they are. If we use the government's current terminology of adolescent parent violence and abuse, what we're doing potentially is marginalising people, and we're suggesting that only those with teenage children are experiencing these behaviours. But that's not what we're seeing as an organisation, and that's not what research is showing us. So for us, CPA fits and encompasses every parent, carer or guardian, regardless of how old their child is. But what is child to parent abuse? It is a pattern of behaviour, often going on for long periods of time. It can include physical attacks. But when I talk about physical abuse and physical attacks, I don't necessarily mean just towards a parent, carer or guardian or somebody else within the home. It can be physical acts of violence in the home with doors, walls and properties being destroyed. The emotional and verbal abuse. Financial abuse. And when I talk about financial abuse, I'm not just talking about stealing, I'm talking about other ways in which children at the moment, from what we're seeing and from what parents are disclosing to us, how they are using the financial abuse to harm their parents. For example, they are creating online accounts and running up thousands of pounds of debt in their parents' name. Perhaps they have a substance misuse and they owe money to somebody. And so that person perhaps is coming to the home. And so we see parents having to pay for their child's addiction because they don't want any harm to come to their child or young person. And equally, they don't want any harm to come to themselves. Sexual abuse. This was really uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about, yet it is somebody's reality. And coercion and control. We're seeing a lot of parents describe coercion and control in lots of different ways. We're hearing stories and experiences of parents where they're not able to leave their homes, they can't eat without permission, they're having to be asked questions constantly, they're being forced to do things against their will. But in terms of research, like I said, 2010, so we are in our infancy, but it's important and crucial that we talk about child-to-parent abuse. We as an organisation wanted to understand what our parents were experiencing so we could adapt our service and meet our parents' needs. So we put out a survey and some of the statistics were shocking. Last year, our parents shared with us that 15% of them were from adoption or fostering families and 50% were single parent families. But if you remember a minute ago when I spoke about why we call it CPA and not adolescent parent violence and abuse, you'll understand 55% of our families have children 12 or under that are displaying extremely violent, aggressive or harmful behaviour towards their parents. Our parents' experiences are sadly that 90% of them are experiencing threatening, controlling behaviours and they're being hit or damaged items within the home from their child. Nearly 80% of the families that we support are sharing that they're being intimidated by their child or young person. I was challenged by my own organisation when I included sexual abuse in our survey. It's uncomfortable, it's something nobody wants to speak about, no one wants to think about. But the reality is almost 5% of the families that we support are experiencing sexual abuse from their own child. Shocking. Even 1% would be shocking. We don't talk about it, we don't ask questions. And for those families, they're even more isolated, unseen and unheard. We know that the families that we're supporting, 30% of them are currently being hit on a daily basis. And some have had to call the police. With up to 40% of the families that we support are calling the police between 1 and 10 times, with 10% of those families having to call the police over 10 times. We also know the impact to parents. 50% of the families that we support have shared that they've either had to leave employment or significantly reduce their hours because of the behaviours of their child or young person within the home. And we also know that just over 50% of the families we support, their child or young person has an additional need. But why does CPA occur? That's one of the questions I'm asked on a daily basis. And the answer is I don't know. There is no single explanation. But what I can tell you is it's multi-causal. For some families, there'll be no reason or rhyme. But there are risk factors when we talk about child-to-parent abuse. And the risk factors that I'm speaking about are things like child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation, mental health, ASD or learning need. Perhaps there's substance misuse going on within the home, adoption and fostering families like we heard about earlier, any trauma, that the child may have experienced. And bereavement and loss, they're also a risk factor. As you can see, it's very complex, and that's why there is no single explanation. But as parents, are you experiencing CPA? Are you in fear of your child or their reactions? Are you avoiding saying or doing something? Or perhaps are you being forced to do something against your will? Have you become isolated from friends, family, or even the community? Or are you being constantly asked for money or goods? If any of these points resonate with you, you may be living with a child who displays abusive behaviours. And that's hard to take, but we're here if you need us. I need to be clear, every person has the right to have their needs met, but having a diagnosis or suspecting an additional need does not mean that displaying these behaviours is okay. We also know that behaviour can be and is a form of communication for some children. And again, their needs must always be met, but there is a line from when it turns to having their needs met into abusive behaviours. Again, this comes with a trigger warning, and we're going to hear now from a parent with lived experience. I'd appreciate it if somebody could tell me if they can't hear what's about to be shared.
No person, no matter who they are or their age, has the right to abuse you, to make you feel so worthless, trapped, and driven to the brink of insanity. We are all aware of this.
It's powerful and perhaps also upsetting. It's really important that we're able to give these parents their voices. But as you've just heard, the effects on parents and carers and guardians could be drastic. It can affect emotional well-being and mental health, perhaps sleep, and certainly employment. Perhaps it also takes an impact onto financial situations, and parents often feel isolated even if they do have a really good support network around them. It can also impact on family and friend relationships. Perhaps family and friends are making their own judgments, pressures onto the parent, carer or guardian. Sibling abuse. Again, something we don't really talk about, but something that is a reality. Quite often the siblings that are living in the household where another child or adult child is displaying abusive behaviours, they're impacted too. And they can last, have long-term effects, can affect family dynamics, lack of trust. Perhaps that sibling will have poor mental health, or they may start to display risky behaviours such as self-harm. Perhaps they themselves will follow negative behaviours that they see being displayed. And perhaps it will also impact on their education, employment, or even socialisation. It's really important that we talk about the effects on siblings and that we're able to identify and offer support for them too. But where do parents go for help? Statistically, our parents have indicated that their first port of call is the school and then the GP. After that, they try CAMHS and social care. And we're also here. What we do know is that there is a cycle parents go through trying to get help and support. And quite often, by the time they finish that cycle, they're at the same point as where they started. Child-to-parent abuse is also a barrier for professionals because they do not understand necessarily, or perhaps they haven't got any understanding of locally what services can be put in place to support the parent, carer or guardian. So it's a challenge for them too. But that doesn't mean that us as parents shouldn't be able to go and ask for help. So what do we do as an organisation for parents? We run different programmes. They're not parenting programmes, but they are support programmes. And they've had a lot of input from those parents that have perhaps lived with children displaying these behaviours for long periods of time. We can provide on occasion one-to-one consultations and advocacy. And we run a very active peer support group. We're fortunate enough that we have access to a counsellor, and she also can provide wellbeing sessions. And our weekly drop-in sessions on Zoom, they're well attended. And some weeks we go through resources and behaviours, and perhaps parents come and share their experiences. So it can be quite heavy. But other weeks, we're just having a cuppa and a chat. But all matters. And it's another outlet, another safe space for parents to talk about experience and to perhaps get some help and support. As I said, we're also here for professionals. We provide various different training programme courses. We've also been really fortunate that we're funded by certain services as well. Everybody that you can see on the screen today either funds us, endorses us or works with us at the moment. Our parents quite often leave testimonials and share with others of how we've helped them. A common theme running through our testimonials is how just talking to us makes them feel less alone and helping them. We're not saying that we have the answers, but we're saying that we'll be able to help and listen. And together, maybe we'll be able to try and find a safe way forward for you and your family. Remember, once you're a parent, you are always that parent. And PEGS will be here to support you no matter how old your child is. We support quite a lot of parents with their child is an adult. They're in their 20s and 30s, or even perhaps 40s. It's incredibly sad when you think about it. But it's important that we're here, and it's important that these parents, carers and guardians are supported too. Because wherever there's a child, there is a parent, carer or guardian somewhere. As an organisation, the past 12 months has been incredibly fast-paced and we've grown at an incredible rate. On the screen, you can see the fact that I have been in talks with and I speak to Baroness Newlove, who is the Deputy Speaker of the House of Lords. I've met with Nicole Jacobs, the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, on numerous occasions. She's a fantastic support too. I've been part of Victoria Derbyshire's show and I'm regularly within the media. Tomorrow, I'm also delivering part of the conference for Westminster Domestic Abuse Forum. We are supported and funded by various police forces, along with central governments, both Wales and also England. We've also upskilled and trained social workers, third sector services working in domestic abuse, local authorities and police forces too. So we're trying to make change and we're trying to make sure that these victim voices are heard, their rights are protected and they too are safeguarded. One final thing from a letter from me to you as a parent. So you see, I've been where some of you have been. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I just don't know how long that tunnel is. PEGS was started because of my own lived experience, but I've turned my pain to power to empower others. I try to make sure that we push forward to see change, to see better support, and to give all of you that opportunity to have your voices heard. We are on all social medias, so please feel free to link in with us, come along and say hello. We quite often share lots of different resources on our Facebook page and everything. We're not shy, and I'm more than happy to speak to professionals as well should they have any questions. And on that note, are there any questions for me? Has anybody got anything they'd like to ask?
Yeah, yes. So is it the PEGS is is it a funded organization, or for those that work in session, do we need to pay or any?
There's no payment. So yeah, no, I refuse to charge parents for our service. So we are funded for certain elements, and the rest of our time, mine particularly, is donated at the moment. So yeah, there is no cost to attend anything that we run or anything that we do.
Okay. And for the just now I saw that for the help contact to CAMS, and then now they call the BU, I think. But
Yeah.
is it common that most of the children with the autism or learning disability, they have some kind of a behavior, and especially during the transition, or because my experience is that my child, he's a very lovely child, but lovely boy, but in the transition, in the like, it could be some behavior issues happen, like some kind of like kicking or throwing things, or but again, um we have a like get the contact the learning disability nurse from the camps, but again, right, we have to go through the waiting list, and then we have to go through for the appointment days and all these. So um I think I really want to do the strategies to be in place at the young age, because he's like, we all started the like get the contact from camps when he was about 7 years old, and now he's 9 years old. But I think like we have to put in the like unfortunately, COVID is also one of the reasons that we didn't get um the support, enough support. I think we need the strategy to be in place at the young age. Am I correct?
Yeah, it would help if strategies were put in place earlier. By the time a parent's reached out for help and support, what we're seeing and what experiences parents are sharing is actually they've been living this and fighting this for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are very aware that strategies and also frameworks for practitioners and everything, we are very aware of like the boundaries and the barriers, really is probably a better phrase.
Okay.
In terms of what we can do, I mean, we're happy to have a discussion if you would like a discussion with us off camera, and see if we can help. There is a tier above CAMS as well, that we can't refer into at the moment because we're not a statutory service, but there's a tier above CAMS called forensic CAMS, and they can provide support and consultations for professionals working with the family initially, for those families where there are extreme violent, abusive or out of control behaviours, and they can provide support in some areas up until the child or young person's 25 with or without a diagnosis. And they're a really good organisation to be able sometimes to get a referral into, and their turnaround tends to be a lot quicker than CAMS themselves, but there is a criteria in order for forensic CAMS, my understanding. So that is another organisation that potentially could offer some support for those families where there are those extreme behaviours being displayed.
Okay. So meaning that although we have a service from the camps, we still can contact to that organization.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're a tier above CAMS. So CAMS can refer into them should they feel that it needs the forensic CAMS expertise, as can schools and as can your own GP, for example, school nurses and things like that.
What? So is it the like? Is it that it's under the PEGS, or
No,
is it?
it's a statutory service. They're called forensic CAMS. So for our area, because we're in the Midlands, because we're in Shropshire, it will come under the Birmingham and Surrey Hill
Okay.
NHS Trust. And a referral can get made by school, by a social worker, by health, by anybody that is a statutory body. They can put a referral in, and
Oh,
if
okay.
and then forensic CAMS will pick it up and they'll decide whether or not they can offer a consultation. Initially, consultations are for professionals only, and then they will provide recommendations on what they think should be happening to support the family as a whole moving forward.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I mean, the first point of contact is like camps, and then if they like, if they need, and then they will refer it. Is it something like that?
You can go through CAMS, or you can ask
GP.
your own GP, or you can ask
Oh,
the
okay.
school, or if you've got a disability social worker, you can ask them to put a referral in for you. So if you're
Okay.
already under CAMS, sometimes it's easier to have that discussion with them and see whether they feel it needs a forensic CAMS input. But if you don't have forensic CAMS at the moment, CAMS working with you at the moment, you can go through other bodies to try and get that referral
Oh,
in, if that makes sense.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So for this statutory service and that organization, right? So assess the child and then put in the strategies, and is it something like that?
So what they will do, forensic CAMs, is they'll do recommendations of what they think should be put in place in order to help the family better. If you're looking for strategies in terms of how to respond to like behaviours and stuff with at home, that's something that we can help with, along with probably school and any other service that's involved.
Okay.
But our strategies are more about responding or reacting to behaviours. We look at the brain and communication. We look about development. We look at expectations. It's very practical. One of the programs that we run based on what our parents told us that they wanted. We also look at self-advocacy and how to work positively with professionals and build up that working relationship with them, because we know that for some families it's really daunting to work with professionals, and so we try to promote self-esteem, self-confidence and resilience to help you to be the best advocate for your family, because we believe that the best advocate for a parent is the parent themselves. Sometimes we just need that help and support along the way.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, just now you mentioned about the walk-in session, right? That walk-in session, is it a Zoom walk-in session or weekly, the drop-in?
The drop-in's weekly at the moment on a Wednesday morning, 10 to 11 a.m. If you wanted to contact us by email, we can send you the link out, and then we just have an hour session on Zoom. There's lots of other parents there, some of the teams there. Some weeks it's me, some weeks it's my staff, and we're on hand then to offer any support or guidance that you might need, or any questions that you might ask.
Okay, so that is every Wednesday morning, 10 to 1 p.m.
10
And
to 11.
how am I going to get the link? Where shall I email to?
If you email hello@pegsupport.com, what I will do is I'll make sure that the school has got our email addresses.
Yeah,
so
okay. Hello. Yeah, okay.
If you email us, one of the admin team will send you the link back out.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Has anybody else got any other questions or anything they'd like to ask me before I go? No, that's absolutely fine.
Sorry, just one last question. So after when we get the support from the organization, right? The session all will be free, isn't it?
Everything's free. There's no charge. Yeah, there's
okay.
no charge. So you can, at the moment, we've got lots of different programs running. We've got a program called Epic, which is an 8-week online program that's running. We've got spaces on there. There's no charge. There's no charge for the peer support. There's no charge for our drop-ins. And then if any parent needs to speak to or would like to speak to a counsellor, we can fund certain sessions for counselling as well, although she is funded, so it does depend on when our funding runs out, but there's no charge to access Lucy either.
Yeah. Thank you so much, thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome.
Because this is my first time I heard about that. That's why I'm just asking.
No, ask. It's good to ask questions. But we can, if you contact us, the girls will send you out. We've got booklets and leaflets and lots of different resources as well. So honestly, feel free just to email us and somebody will get back to you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Michelle.
No, you're very welcome. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.